most respected faculty and my own guru of many of the chartered accounts present here, our own CA Pattabhiraman sir from Chennai, Secretary of Kannur branch CA Shivaprasad sir, Treasurer CA Dinesh sir, Vice Chairman of Kannur branch PJ Riji, MC members, members of the profession, illustrious past chairman, and my dear participants. Today, yet another golden moment in the history of Kannur branch, with the presence of the great professional, passionate teacher and author who is well known among the students, professionals and business community throughout India, none other than our own CA Pattabhiraman sir. Apart from the position as a chairman of Kannur branch, personally, I am also very happy and delighted by getting my own guru, CA Pattabhiraman sir, from whom I have got the real logic of the subject financial management, which I have shared with many of the CA students in Kerala as a teacher. Sir, I am taking this opportunity to welcome you and at the same time thanking you for accepting our invitation to present the passionate topic, happiness in the digital era. Sir, I am welcome you once again, sir.
Thank you.
I am taking this opportunity to welcome all the participants, including members of the profession, students, and all others. And I'm just informing all the participants, tomorrow we are going to witness the presence of yet another vibrant personality, none other than our own past president of the Institute of Chartered Accounts of India, C. Amarjit Chopra sir, for presenting the topic, common errors in financial statement. And you should note that the time is morning 11:15. The time is morning 11:15. Because why I am specifying that time, because normally we are doing the meeting in the evening, but tomorrow it will be 11:15 morning. And on 25th Saturday, another vibrant personality, CA Venkatramani sir, who will present the GST assessment and appeal. The topic will be handled in the evening. And on 29th Saturday, our Ernakulam Chartered Accounts CA PT Joy sir, who will deliberate on new compliance in the income tax return for assessment year 2021. And again on 1st August, T. Bhanusekhar sir by reassessment and revision. These are the program that we have fixed with the permission of the ICAI. So I am thanking Corona also, because this is one of the great opportunity that we are getting through the Corona. Anyway, I am informing my members that you please fill the Google form, which will the criteria for getting the CP credit for the members of the Kannur branch. And this time, this is the first time that we are going to have a Zoom or the online AGM, which we have fixed on 30th. Anyway, welcoming all of you once again, and I am requesting the Vice Chairman PJ Riji to formally introduce the faculty of today's session, Pattabhiraman sir. Thank you, Riji. Please.
Respected Chairman CA Jayaprakash, renowned speaker for today's webinar, CA V. Pattabhiraman sir, a name cherishing in the memories of the students, Secretary of the branch CA Shivaprasad sir, Managing Committee members, my fellow members in the profession, students and dear friends. It's my pleasure and great privilege to present before you a great personality and leader of the profession, CA V. Pattabhiraman sir. CA V. Pattabhiraman, a renowned chartered accountant based in Chennai but works globally, is a great author, a renowned speaker and a passionate teacher. He is a founder partner of Mrs. Yoganath and Ram Chartered Accountants Chennai, and he is in the stream of valuation and strategy. He was a rank holder throughout his studies. He did his internship at Deloitte and was the best outgoing student at college. He authored many books, and his successful first novel, Ticking Times, is setting in the backdrop of the audit profession. His most recent book, Future of Higher Education, 9 Megatrends, was launched by the Vice President of India, live on Rajya Sabha TV on 30th June. He is a writer of various columns in finance, economics, etc., and also gives opinion on financial and economic matters. Sir, indeed, we are delighted to have you here in this fine evening and are eager to hear from you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
To Pattabhiram, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Chairman. It is very, very heartening to notice that you have an impressive lineup of topics, and possibly, like you said, Corona should be scared of what you're doing, and hopefully it vanishes away. Good evening to all of you who have assembled here today. It's very nice to talk to all of you remote. And I do hope that in the days ahead, in the months ahead, when mankind eventually conquers or finds the vaccine that will throw out Corona, we will continue to hold webinars and work largely, at least 30-35% from home or from anywhere. That gives us the kind of comfort that it does. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a topic over which I'm quite passionate. It's a topic which across the last 1 year, I must have spoken in at least 7 places. I spoke largely at the Bridge Conference of the ICT Academy, a Government of India initiative. I also spoke on the exact same topic at the regional conference of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, spoke on the same topic at ISACA's national conference, and I spoke on much the same topic in the ICAI's international conference at Muscat. These are just some of the leading places where I spoke, just to give you the perspective that what we are going to do today should be of great interest to you, even in the midst of, what should I say, lots of technical subjects that you're going to go through across the next few days. Do you have a pencil and a paper with you by any chance? Nearby, can you grab one? And I would like some of you to respond to me by unmuting yourself. If you don't have a paper and pencil with you, if you think you can't grab one now, just on your mind, in your mind, think of the happiest moment in your life. Maybe close your eyes 30 seconds and think of the happiest moment in your life. And on a scale of 0 to 10, rate how happy you were at that particular point in time. I want you to think of the most happy moment of your life. It could be the time when you passed your chartered accounting exam. It could be the time when you got married. It could be whatever. You put it out on a scale of 10. All right. What I next want you to do on that sheet of paper is to put out on a scale of 10, 0 being least happy, 10 being most happy, as to how happy you are at this particular point in time. Now, at this particular point in time. If you have done that, I'm sure you agree that at this point in time is not the happiest moment of your life. Our medium-term objective is to move from where we are now to where we were once upon a time, which was the happiest moment of our life. And our long-term objective would be to move to as close to 9 or as close to 10 on that scale. That should be our objective. Why I wanted you to think about the happiest moment of your life is because that brings in the kind of positive vibration as you try to pick up 3 models that I will talk to you about that can move you from where you are to where you one day want to be. Okay? And like I said, please interact, because otherwise it would be a one-sided conversation. I want you to take a look at this picture. I want some of you to tell me what you see there. And this time you have to answer. Anybody who can unmute and tell us what you see there? Yeah, somebody please give us an answer so that we can move on.
Group photo from school.
Pardon?
Group photo from school.
A group photo of a school. That's good. That's good. What else do you see there? What else can you tell?
Only
Boy,
one kid is smiling.
I didn't catch you. What is that?
The kid on the left side is happy rather than others.
Left side means the boys or the girls?
Boy.
Boys are happy. All right. Somebody else?
No.
The teacher is also happy, sir. Teacher is very happy.
Who was that? What's your name?
Jayaprakash, JP sir, chairman.
Chairman, tell me the truth. Is the teacher looking happy, or you think that the teacher is terribly beautiful and you've fallen for her?
No, sir. Teacher is happy. I think so.
She's happy, is it? I thought she looked beautiful. Okay, all right. Anybody else? Rajesh? Rajesh, you can tell us something as to what you see, what you see there.
Except teacher and that particular boy.
Which
All
boy?
are scary.
Which boy?
The second left.
Second left. That fat guy, is it? All right. I'll tell you, I'll provide you some background. Now I'll ask you a quick question. Unfair question, bad question, but I'll ask you. I'll tell you that this is a day that I can't forget. This was shot when I was 10 years old, when I was in class 6. I wanted to spot where am I.
Wow.
So that should make it interesting.
In the boy, third one.
Third from where?
There's a teacher side, third boy.
You're being racist. I know how you found out. Okay. anyway, doesn't matter. Okay. Now, I'll tell you why this photo to me is important. Like I told you, this was shot when I was in class 6. I still remember the day on which this happened. I should also tell you that when I was in class 6, I fell in love. I don't know whether I can say fell in love. I think not with any one of those girls there. It was the teacher. So I had a great crush for the teacher. And that morning, the teacher in the classroom asked this very simple question. She said, what is it that you guys want to do when you grow up? Okay, I'll show that picture again. What is it that you want to do when you grow up? So one boy there who is seated there, I don't want to identify him. He said, I want to be a doctor. Today, he is one of the top intervention cardiologists in the United Kingdom. He's reasonably well known in UK. Another boy said, I want to be an engineer. Today, I'll not name him because you will know him. Today, he's part of the senior management team of one of India's largest construction companies. One of the girls who is seated there on the left said she wanted to be a cook. What she actually meant was that she wanted to be a chef. Today, in the western part of India, she does a Sanjeev Kapoor. She appears on regional television and gives out recipes. And I understand that she's very, very popular. And then the teacher turned to me and asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? You know, I was tongue-tied. My favorite teacher asking me, what do I want to do when I grow up? I just kept quiet. And then she said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, ma'am, when I want to grow up, I want to be happy. And she said, oh, that's all right. That's fine. But what is it that you want to do when you grow up? I said, madam, when I grow up, I want to be happy. That day, that evening, she wrote in my report card, this guy is very good. He's excellent in English. He's excellent in Hindi. He's excellent in mathematics. He's very good in science. He's very, very good in history, in civics, in geography. But he has no clue to what he wants to do when he grows up in life. That is exactly what she wrote in my report card. I still have the report card. I have great admiration for the teacher, and I still today admire her. She was then 16 years older than me. I'm sure she is 16 years older than me even today. But I think in hindsight, with the advantage of hindsight, I can tell you that it was a teacher who was wrong. I was bang on. Not that I knew anything, but I think the objective of life is not to become an engineer. The objective of life is not to become a doctor. The objective of life is not to become a chartered accountant. The objective of life is not to become a lawyer. The objective of life is to be happy. Being a doctor, being a CA, being an engineer, being a lawyer, these are all roads that take you to happiness. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, hey, God, please let my day be miserable. I want to be extremely unhappy today. Nobody says that. So the first important thing, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that I want to drive home today is that we must tell ourselves, we must promise ourselves that we should be happy. Nothing in this world, people say, can buy happiness. That might be true, but it is more important to be happy than to participate in a rat race that ultimately leads you to unhappiness. If that is broadly understood, I'll now move on to the principal part of my talk. I'll speak for about 40 minutes. I'll try to talk to you about what I think are 3 important models that would lead you to happiness. Okay? Just take a look at this. When we were growing up, the best and brightest boys and the best and brightest girls wanted to do engineering or wanted to do medicine. There were very few people, maybe like me, who decided by choice, not by compromise, that they wanted to do finance. Even among the engineers, just as even amongst the guys who wanted to do commerce, the objective was to get into the Indian Institute of Management. The engineering boys wanted to get into IIT and then to IIM. The commerce guys told themselves that we want to get into the Sriram College of Commerce or any one of the top colleges of the country and then go to the Indian Institute of Management. And we told ourselves that if we get to IIM, then we'll be very happy. We never realized that the moment you step into IIM, new problems arise. There'll be battle for grades, there will be competition, then there will be battle for getting placements, etc., etc., etc. You see a man there? There are many people who are unhappy with their bosses. They say, if only I had a great boss, if only I had a great boss, life would have been different. In fact, a colleague of mine some 15 years back, a friend of mine some 15 years back actually said, I'm sorry to say that, but he actually said, if tomorrow my boss has a heart attack, I'll be very, very happy. I asked him why. He says, but for him, I'm not able to progress in life. This is what I call the if-then model. If I get into IIM, I'll become happy. If my boss falls sick, then I will be happy. Or take a look at this picture. What do you make out as you see that? What is your guess? What is that place? Somebody? Somebody who can give us an answer? Prashant, you want to answer?
It's a beach.
It's a beach, okay. All right. That actually, what you said is right, a beach. There are many of us who tell ourselves, if only I can go to that vacation, say in Zurich, I will be very happy. So if we want to get into IIM, we want great bosses, we want to enjoy vacations. I tell people, if we get into this if-then model, then we are doomed. Let me give you an example. Watch this. I've intentionally cut off the video. The video has no significance. In any of the videos that I put, The sounds have no significance. What did you see there? What do you see there? Somebody?
Rainbow.
You saw the
Rainbow.
rainbow. Wonderful, wonderful. Some people see the house. Some people see the greenery. Some people see the long road. And you saw the rainbow. I'm going to focus on the rainbow. When you see a rainbow, how does the rainbow look like? How do you feel when you see the rainbow? Yours is a city that has rains. So when you see a rainbow, how do you feel? Does a rainbow look beautiful or does it look ugly? Do you feel happy when you see
Beautiful.
it looks
sir.
beautiful.
Beautiful.
I don't think any one of us ever told us that if this rainbow was 1 inch to the left or 1 feet to the right, it would have been great. We simply admired the rainbow. I'm therefore proposing to all of you that the first rule or the first model for happiness is to accept the world as it is. There are points in time in our life when we think that we are born here to change the world. If we can change things around us, good. But if we can't change things, or we should not really go out wanting to change everything around us, keeping on cribbing about, hey, if only the rainbow had been 1 inch to the left, the world would have been better. If only my father had that extra money to put me into a better college, things would have been better. Or if only I was not the eldest son in my family, things would have been better. If we stick to this if-then model, we are doomed. So the first important thing, ladies and gentlemen, for all of us is to accept the world as it is. I said I'll talk to you about 3 models. I'm done with my first. This is a big story. This is a story that I'm going to tell you. It is called the spaghetti sauce model. Spaghetti is pasta, okay? There were 2 types of sauces in the 1980s. And this is story from real life. I've not made up. One was called Prego. The other was called Ragu. I have seen Ragu in the stalls even today. I've not noticed Prego. And I started seeing Ragu in the stalls only after I came to know about this story. Ragu was the market leader by a mile. And Prego was second best in terms of market standing. Yet the people in Prego believed, and rightly so, that Prego was the better product compared to Ragu. So sauce, as you know, means ketchup. We understand some people call it sauce, some people call it ketchup. Now Prego was a better ketchup. For example, if you drop Prego on the, what should I say, on the pasta or on the spaghetti, it'll sit there, bang, it'll not flow out. Whereas Ragu would not sit there, it'll actually flow out. That means Ragu lacked tardiness, whereas Prego had tardiness. That plus the taste, plus multiple other things, Prego was better, but Ragu was the market leader. And so what Prego did was that it went out and called out a consultant. I think his name was Moskowitz. It called up a man called Moskowitz and asked him to analyze the situation. Moskowitz did something remarkable. What Moskowitz did was that he made 45 different variations of Ragu and Prego. And he broke them by sweetness, he broke them by tartness, he broke them by sourness, and he broke them by visible solid. Okay? So sweetness, tartness, sourness, and visible solid. He made 45 different variations of it. Over a period of 6 months, he assembled tons and tons of people in a town hall and landed up with huge data. Today we call it big data. He landed up with monumental amount of data. And like typical accountant, he analyzed those data. And when the time came for him to present it to the management, he did not say 37th variation is excellent, so make 37th variation. He instead, what he did was that he did a cluster diagram. And he said, sauce, there are three types of sauce. There are three groups of sauce, according to him. He said, people like plain sauce, sauce which is plain. People like sauce which is spicy. And people like sauce which is extra chunky. So extra excited about it. Okay? And there was something remarkable about this classification. What was remarkable about this classification, and which is what the board of Prego asked him, is that, are you sure that people like only plain, only spicy, and only extra chunky? And he said, yes. What was remarkable there was that in the whole of the United States of America, nobody, just nobody was selling extra chunky sauce. And so the director asked Moskowitz, are you trying to tell us that 33% of customers are there who want to buy sauce that is extra chunky, and we in the world of sauce don't even know that, don't even make that? Moskowitz said, sir, unfortunately, that is right. And then Prego went ahead, invested money in making sauces that were extra chunky. And the story goes that across the next 10 years, they made tons and tons and tons of money. If you ask me what is the moral of the story, I'll tell you what the moral of the story is. The moral of the story is that happiness is not on a vertical plane. That means I have a car, I'm happy, so I must have a bigger car so that I'll become happier. So I must have the biggest car so that I become very, very happy. That's not right. You can be happy having multiple things. You might be happy having a house, a car, a wife, a kid, a whatever. And most importantly, different things make different people happy. That's why I say it is not upwards, but it is like a box. It's like a large box where there are different slots, and different things make different people happy. And for the same person, multiple things make them happy. Moral of the story is that we must embrace diversity. I'm not trying to sound political. I don't greatly believe in political diplomacy, but I would strongly believe that more than any other time in the history of mankind, these are the times when we actually need to embrace diversity. Diversity of thought, diversity of religion, diversity of practice, diversity of the background in which we come, because all said and done, ultimately, most of these classifications, most of these doctrines of diversity are artificially created by people. If we embrace diversity, if you realize that different people have different things that make them happy, if you realize that different people have different choices and most of them mean well, if we choose not to take things too personal, I think we'll be extremely happy. I told you that so long as we don't stick to the if-then model, we will be happy. I just now told you that in order to be happy, you must embrace diversity. Before I move on to what I think is the third and last rule, and then I'll talk about a few other things. If you have any points that you would like to add, because I'm not the owner of all wisdom. If there are some points that you would like to add, some observations that you would like to make, please go ahead and do now. Somebody can give a lead so that people can share thoughts and ideas. Saju, you can possibly give a lead by giving in your thoughts. Yeah, Saju, go ahead.
No, sir, I'll just hear you out. That would probably, I mean, if you ask me what is the happiest moment now,
Yeah.
in the scale of 0 to 10,
Okay.
seeing my teacher in the Zoom is the greatest pleasure, sir. To be quite honest, what is the happiest moment in this day? I would definitely say seeing you live, sitting at the other side, because you are one person. When we came to Chennai to attend to your classes, you are one person whom we always look to. We made sure we never missed out even one single class of yours. So in that sense, this is a great day for me in the scale of 0 to 10. So just wanted to add that.
Oh, thank you, Saju. So different things make different people
Exactly.
happy.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it's all these small things that make people happy, and people must keep these small things, because all small things accumulating together could be a large moment of happiness. Somebody else wants to make a point or two, because I don't want to go out and name people, but I would naturally like you to respond to, because if you respond to, people can get more insights. Sri Lakshmi, you would like to make out a point?
I think, sir, expecting less would make our all life happy.
Oh, that's excellent. That is excellent. That's true. If you do not have too many expectations, and that's not bad, that's not being negative, that's not being lacking in ambition. That's actually, you don't expect too much out of people, don't expect, then there is the level of happiness that could come in. All right. I will move on. I'll go and talk to you about my third model. And this is something that happened to me. So I'll tell you this story. It is, in my mind, a very interesting story. Okay, first look at this. I actually wanted to show this before, I just forgot. But anyways, when I saw this land up on my inbox, and when I saw it, I was terribly excited. What do you feel when you see that? What is the one takeaway there? One important takeaway from that video. To some of us, that looks very stupid, very silly. But then there is a very important takeaway from there. What is it? If you notice that young boy and somebody else, they were extremely happy by the prank that he played out. What the moral that I wanted to drive home is that if we sit on judgment over what people do and say, hey, look, he is being idiotic in being happy on a stupid act of his, that we are being very judgmental. Like I said, different things bring happiness to different people. Small things bring happiness to people. This was a story that I wanted to tell you. What do you see on the left-hand side? Rack of what? I know I asked bad questions, but you'll have to bear with that. What do you see there?
Jeans.
Jeans. All right. How many are there?
6.
Is it 6 or is it 5? 6. Okay. Now let me tell you a story. I love jeans. It is just that the nature of the work that I do does not allow me to wear this for extended periods of time. Otherwise, if you give me a choice, I would wear it all through the day, all 365 days a year. Now, can somebody tell me what is so great about jeans? Anybody who can tell what's so great about jeans?
Washing is not required.
Wonderful. Washing is not required. Very good. In fact, a friend of mine told me that you buy jeans, wear it for X number of years, and then you burn it. Okay. So in other words, washing is technically not required. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to tell you about. 3 years back, I went to, can you just mute yourself if you don't mind, all of you? 3 years back, I went to a mall. It's called the Forum Mall in Chennai, and I wanted to buy a pair of jeans. So when I walked into the shop, I told the guy, look, this is my waist size. I want jeans. That's how I have historically bought. And then the guy asked me, sir, do you want slim fit? Do you want easy fit? Do you want relaxed fit? Now, I never understood that, because for me, my jeans were always bought by somebody else. And to somebody else, I would always just give my waist size. So I told him, what are you talking? He said, no, there are 3 things. Then I asked him, what is slim fit? What is easy fit? What is relaxed fit? He explained something. And then I took the middle path, like most accountants do. I said, okay, give me easy fit. Then he said, do you want zipper fly or do you want button fly? Oh, I was a little zapped. I, for a moment, did not understand what is zipper fly, what is button fly. And then as it dawned on me what he was saying, I said zipper fly. Now, if you are good in your math, you will now know that you have got 3 into 2, 6 combinations, 6 choices that you can make. And I had chosen easy fit, zipper fly. I thought my problem was over. No, my problem had just begun. This guy said, do you want stone washed or do you want acid washed? Now, I grew up in a generation where cloth used to be banged against a stone to wash it. They were the pre-washing machine days. So I thought maybe that's what he means. So I thought, oh no, I don't want that. I will want acid washed. So I said, I want acid washed. Some of you would have already noticed that the choices are now 3 into 2, 6 into 2, 12. And I had chosen out of the 12, I had chosen 1. I had chosen easy fit, zipper fly, acid washed. And then he asked me, do you want bottom cut or do you want bottom tapered? I was by now sick. I told him, you give whatever you like. He said, no, sir, it doesn't work like that. You have to make a call. So I said, okay, give me bottom cut. I'm sure you have now realized that we are talking about 3 into 2, 6 into 2, 12 into 2, 24. That list was actually long. I have cut it at 24. And I had made the choice of easy fit, button fly, acid washed, and bottom cut. After I left the shop 100 feet away, I asked myself, did I make the right choice? Should I have not bought slim fit rather than easy fit? As I walked another 100 feet away, I told myself, should I have not taken stone washed? So I was now beginning to feel confused. I'll tell you why I was beginning to feel confused. Earlier, when I go home and my mother tells me, hey, what is this pant that you have bought? This is not looking good. I could have told her, mother, I am not to blame. The guys who make jeans, they are to be blamed, because you just have to give your waist, size, and they will give you the pant, which means that there is only one type. Today, if somebody says what I'm wearing is not good, I can't show my finger at the jean joint. I'll have to show my finger at myself, because I was the guy who made the choice. The moral of the story, ladies and gentlemen, is very simple. The lesser the choices that you have in life, the better it is. I'm not saying that you should have Hobson's choice. That means just one choice. You should have 2 or 3 choices, and maybe you make out of that. Imagine when you go to a restaurant and you want buffet, or you've ordered buffet. You really do not know what to select. When I go to a restaurant, I am always told my friend, with any of my friends who go, that you guys decide, I will keep myself busy eating, and if you want, I will settle the check. Okay? So I keep the options less. If you keep options less, you will be extremely happy. Let me extend that to a further example. These are pandemic times. These are the times when we talk a lot about the medical profession. I've been a great fan of the medical profession from long years of time. I genuinely believe that that is the profession that comes closest to being the profession of God. It's another matter that there might have been a lot of, what should I say, business angle to hospitals, but that's an entirely different story. These are the guys who have always put their jobs online, and the pandemic has shown how much these guys are willing to go forward in order to save people's life. But in the medical profession today, there is something called patient autonomy. It's all got to do with the fact that no, everybody today, before they go to a doctor, Google and find out what could be the medicine. In fact, I know a doctor, a good friend of mine, who's put up a board in his house very prominently, in his clinic, very prominently. And the board says, if you're coming to me for a second opinion after you have consulted Professor Google, please don't come. That's what he's put it out there. But that's a different story. I'm not on that. I'm on a completely different story. Today, a doctor tells a patient that, look, you have this. These are 3 alternative, what should I say, prescriptions or 3 alternative packages. Which one do you want to take? I faced a situation like that once. No, I had no clue. What clue will an accountant have in terms of what is good? So I told the doctor, what do you suggest? He said, look, alternative A has the following advantages, disadvantages, cost. Alternative B has the following advantages, disadvantages, cost. Alternative C has the following advantages, disadvantages, cost. Now you make the choice. I thought I was being very smart and told the doctor, doctor, if you were me, what would you do? And the doctor, tongue in cheek, said, unfortunately, I am not you. Look at the oddity of the situation. Look at the absurdness of the situation. Here, choice is being passed on from an expert to a non-expert. Not only is it getting passed on from an expert to a non-expert, it is also getting passed on to a guy who's actually sick and who is in no position, who is in no shape to make judgments. What I'm trying to tell you is not to drag the medical profession down. I would be the last guy to do that. All that I'm trying to tell you is that if you have less choice, and as Sri Lakshmi said, if you have lower expectations, life will be a lot happier. So cut down on choices, cut down on expectations, be clear about what you want, and you will do extremely well. To very quickly, before I move to some concluding observations, I wanted to quickly summarize what I said. I said we must not get into this if-then mode. I also said that we must embrace diversity in our workplace and in the community where we live. Third, I said, if we can keep our choices limited and if we can actually lower our expectations, that does not mean that we are being any the less ambitious, then that would be good. I now move on. I want you to take a look at this. This is called the happiness U-shape, and this was done in England. And the U-shape says that people are least happy when they are in their middle ages, between 44 to 54. When they are younger, they are happy. When they are 16 to 24, they are quite happy because they think that they are born to change the world. And then as they begin to work, as they begin to realize that, the world is not an oyster that they can change, their happiness levels drops. And then they are in that corporate rat race, wanting to build something. 45 to 54 is when things are lowest. And then happiness actually starts moving up. People say happiness moves up after someone is 55 or so, because once you've reached that age, you've seen a lot of this world. You realize what is possible, you realize what is not possible. More importantly, you realize that there is only a limited window of life left. And at that particular point in time, you tell yourself that, look, I have a few priorities in life. I have a few things that I have always wanted to do. I will now focus on those priorities. I will now focus on the things that I have always wanted to do. And therefore, as they move up, they are extremely happy. 65, 70, 74, they're very happy. UK studies suggest that post 75, happiness begins to dip in because of people are less healthy at that particular point in time. We don't have to trust this wholly, but I'm trying to tell you that happiness goes in bips, ups and downs. Let me move on. Let me tell you what I think represent the 6 F's to happiness. The first F is fame. If you're famous, if you're an Amir Khan, or if you're a Sachin Tendulkar, or if you're a big guy in your field and you therefore enjoy fame, that keeps you happy. There are a lot many people who tell you money is not important. COVID-19 has told us, if nothing else has ever told us about it, that money is important. I would be the last guy to say chase money, but I would like to believe that money, what I've here called fortune, is important, because minus that, you cannot do many things. The people who say money cannot buy happiness, I would like to be unhappy with money rather than be unhappy without money. The third important thing is the family. As Shiv Khera told on the day before, on the 19th of July, when he addressed a large group of people live over Zoom, these times, these pandemic times have shown us that it's very, very important to be close to the family. If you have a well-knit, close family, then there is that much more happiness. If you're friends, good friends, I'm not talking about 5,000 friends on the social media. No, that's shallow friendship. If you have friends, the number which you can count with your one hand, like Winston Churchill said, if you can count the number of your close friends with the 5 fingers of your one hand, you can tell yourself that you have led a great life. If you have a couple of 3 a.m. friends, that means guys whom you can call up at 3 in the morning, not tell them why you are calling them, not apologize to them for calling them, and you cry over their shoulder, or you jump in joy over their shoulder on the phone, and that guy is not going to ask you any question. Please trust me, you will be very, very happy. Fitness is very important for happiness. And if you think that you have a well-to-do future, that also keeps you happy. Denmark, which is widely believed as being the country where people are most happy, says in a survey that people of Denmark have said that they are extremely happy because they are very healthy and they are very well educated. And if you're great education, naturally your future is that much the better. I'll just quickly summarize what I said, and I'll close out with that. And then you have questions, you can raise them. If you have observations, you can make them. I began by saying that it is very important for us to tell ourselves, to promise ourselves that we want to be happy. The goal of life is happiness. Being a CA, being a lawyer, being a doctor, being a teacher, being an actor, being a fashion designer, these are all paths that take us to happiness. I then said, with the help of the story of the rainbow, with the help of the attempt to get into IIM, that we must accept things as they are. While we must do our best to change things around us, we must also realize what our limitations are. I said, embracing diversity is the second step to happiness. Realizing that there are different people who require different things. And this is all the more true in the digital era, where people are hooked to their mobiles, where people are hooked to their digital devices, where lots and lots of conversation takes place digitally. They are not face-to-face conversations. They are conversations face-to-face, albeit through video conferencing. In a world like that, which is very, very different from the world in which I and many of you grew up, it's very important to realize that we must embrace diversity. My third point was that the secret to happiness is having less choice and lower expectations. And then I said, ladies and gentlemen, that fame, fortune, family, friends, fitness, and having a good foreseeable future are the 6 F's to happiness. Thanks a lot for your attention. You have any questions, I'll be most happy to answer them. You have any points to share, I'll be most happy to listen to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful presentation over this 1 hour on this topic and I think that you have created a lot of rules, which is nothing but the advice and you have gone through different aspects to arrive at that rules, where you have advised all the professional students that these are the things that we require to become happiness, especially in this present scenario of COVID-19 itself. So really, thank you, sir. Members, please unmute and interact with the faculty, and please contribute your own thoughts regarding the different points mentioned by Pattabhiram sir. Please.
Yeah, go ahead. Somebody had a point?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. My name is Srijit. So you are telling us that we should have a limited alternatives to make it a happiness now. So if you have a limited alternatives, then we are limiting our opportunities also, sir.
No, I am not saying that you must have limited opportunities. I'm saying that, let me give you an example. Suppose you want, I know my example may not be the best, but suppose you want to sit and take a decision on where you want to go for a vacation. Of course, vacation is now the farthest thing that people will have in mind. But if you want to decide where you want to go for a vacation, and let us, for simplicity, assume that you want to vacation in some part of India. You make a list and say, I can go to Jammu and Kashmir, I can go to Bengal, I can go to Maharashtra, I can go to Goa, I can go to Uttar Pradesh. If you make a laundry list of 13 items, so you will fight over it. My own thinking would be that you should say, I want to go to east, west, north, south. Then there are only 4 choices. After you've made that choice, then you tell yourself which one do I want to do. So if you discuss around 2-3 options before you, then that will make it easier to decide. Fights will be less, happiness will be more. That's the point that I'm making. I'm not saying, for example, in your profession, don't look at multiple aspects. By all means, look at them.
Okay, so that is okay. I understood, sir. So we have a limited choice, means we have to group it as a, how you mentioned, no?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Understood, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, what would be your advice to the younger chartered accountants who are just qualified or means less than 2 years of their post qualification? Means they are still in
Prashant, advice in terms of what? Advice in terms of what?
Advice in terms of both happiness and what they expect. Means both money, they are confused. What would be their choice? Means to go to practice or go to industry or kind of like that.
Well, that's a very wide range. I'll try to keep it as easy as is possible. First up, if I tell the younger generation that you don't know what to do, I think they'll say, hey, this guy is from a very old generation. Okay. If I tell them money is not the most important thing in life, they would say, oh, this is a boomer, he's talking rubbish. But as people grow up, they will soon start realizing that, to first answer that question, they would soon start realizing that while money is important, it is not the most important thing in life. My sense is that if you want to set up a practice, you must establish it the hard way. You must establish it on the bedrock of good work, on the bedrock of integrity, because things can fall just overnight. There are so many people whom we have looked up to as being role models, and finally saw that 1 transaction, 2 transactions, and they all had feet of clay. So it's very important to do whatever you like to do in the right way. That's important. Okay. The other key thing that I want to tell people is that success does not come easily. It does not. So when you look at a guy and say, hey, this guy is an overnight success, there's no such thing as overnight success. Behind every overnight success, there is years and years of hard work. Today, there is a lot of talk in the film industry, for example, about nepotism. Now, while different people have different view, I've always believed that in a market economy, and film industry is as much a market economy, people will select talent. Okay, so it's very important. It's very important for us to realize that if we want to be successful, we need to build up good skills. And I would think, and I'm very serious about that, I've told people who are related to me, my nephews and my nieces, I've told them that the first 5 to 7 years of your career is to build skills. Once you have strong skills, once you have good experience, money will automatically start flowing in. If you begin by saying, hey, look, I want to earn money, it doesn't happen. And I'm not against people earning lots of money. Like, I think it was Mr. Manoharan who once told me in a private conversation that we had in a certain context. He said, good people should earn lots of money because they will put it to good cause. So to cut a long story short, if the younger generation wants to listen to me, I would like to tell them that the first 5 to 7 years, invest yourself in acquiring skills that are relevant for the 21st century. There are lots of changes that are today taking place in the 21st century. There is automation that is happening in a very, very, very big way. One has to be relevant for that. So those kind of skills that are required in order to be relevant, they must pick that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
But sir, could you please add something?
Sir, you have taken us to past life and all our happiest moments in life. But at the time, we feel that we are not happy now. We should be happy now at this moment and at this place. It is time and place specific. Say, if you think of past, you will be happy. And in future, you will be worried what is going to happen after pandemic, what is going to happen, what will happen to my profession, etc. But one should be able to be happy with the present time, with the present setup and the present location. Am I right?
You are 100% right. For example, there is no point in thinking of things over which we have absolutely no control. For example, we must focus only on things that are within our control. Pandemics is something that is not within our control. We have to do our best in order to safeguard ourselves. For example, the medical profession tells that people beyond a certain age must impose self-restriction on themselves and not go out. So we need to heed to that. If we ask ourselves, what will happen after this? What will happen to my profession? Nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. Who did ever think that that guy called Sushant Singh Rajput will just vanish the next day? So I think what you said is 100% right. We will have to, while the future is important, we'll have to focus on the present. And we need to live neither in the past nor in the future, but right here, right now, the present. In fact, as somebody once said, the present is important, and that is why it is called the present, as in the word gift.
Okay, great.
Saju, could you please add something?
So one point of view, I came across it in last Sunday's Indian Express Sunday Time, wherein they linked happiness to a situation called realism. That is, you should neither be a pessimist nor you should be an optimist, but rather you should be a realist, so that you will be in a better position to judge what your capabilities are. Correct. And then act accordingly. Because if you are an optimist, the possibility, that was a point of view, a thought process that was thrown in that particular discussion, which was there in the paper. It says that if you are a optimist, what would happen is you would not know what your true strengths and weaknesses are, and you will be taking more risks as compared to a realist, wherein you will feel a little bit more grounded. I mean, just thought I would share with you.
No, you're 100% correct. This story about all of us should be optimistic, that this is positive, something else is negative, is, to use a very absurd word, is bullshit. For example, people say that if a glass is half full, you must say it is half full, otherwise you're a pessimist. So that's wrong. For example, if I'm a guy who is selling water, when I see it is half empty, I should see it is half empty. Then only I will do business. So this question of what is being optimist, what is being pessimist, is in individual choices. And like you rightly said, no, I should know whether I'm capable of doing it. Instead of that, if I tell myself, no, when I have a history of poor academic record, if I say I will get the All India 10th rank, it doesn't work. And there are some, it is not as though getting the All India 10th rank will necessarily make people happy or make them more successful in life.
Sir, actually, what is the strategy that you have followed or practiced to become a professional or as a teacher?
I have always told people who have wanted to hear that my getting into teaching was purely accidental. Okay, was purely accidental. At the same time, I always believed that in life, there can be one period of time in life when you can work despite you not liking what you're working. That means you work because you have to earn money. Money, all said and done, is important. I have never had any inhibitions about saying that. At the same time, at some point in life onwards, you should do what you like. And maybe I was extremely fortunate that I started doing very early in life, when I was in my very early 20s that I began to teach, which is something that I like. So maybe that way I was very fortunate. What I also want people to realize is that we should not look at, and let me tell you also, like somebody once asked when I was to, okay, let me cut that short. There are some people who at 6:15 in the morning go to play golf. There are some people who at 6:15 in the morning go for a walk. People like me decided that at 6:15 in the morning we teach. They were choices that we made. We were comfortable with that choice, and I think that turned out to be beneficial. What I'm also trying to tell you is that if you want to be happy over something, you must not overdo it. If you're going to teach from morning to night, it's going to be a huge strain. If you're going to teach from morning to evening, it might be okay up to a point, but certain things need to be done with a certain level of limitation. Of course, I've also been guilty of teaching long hours, but no, if you make that your principal thing, you will be uncomfortable. That is why if you look at it, people like take MS Dhoni, for example. He does not live cricket, sleep cricket, dream cricket. He what is that? He drives. He does multiple other things. That's what makes people sane and happy. Sachin Tendulkar is another example, but a little more extreme, because he is generally not known doing anything other than cricket, but he also plays tennis. So people should have multiple occupations, some things that keep them, something that help them earn a living, something that takes them on the path to fame, or something that helps them get recognized. So many things are there. One has to balance things.
Anything is to be added? Friends, participants, youngsters, Najib? Yes. Saugandh? Najib? Yes. So these are the of Kannur Chartered Accountant, Kannur branch. Okay. And I think he is a little bit confused what to do. Or some more energy. The energy level is very, very high, sir. So I don't know whether he is happy or he is.
He's got confused in the last 1 hour. He was very clear earlier.
First of all, actually, I would like to thank you for giving a wonderful book for the SFM, because SFM was a subject which got me to pass this chartered accountants. I got 73 out of the SFM. It's all because of your book. Because I got all of you have written the book with two fictional characters talking to each other. It's like it has explained all things very well. So I would most importantly thank you for that. Okay, and also regarding this happiness you were talking about, I have taken the CA because my mother wanted to be a CA in her family. So, but I take that her dream to mine, and that way I find happiness. Now I am so happy to be a CA. So that, I would, from my life, I would like to say that the only thing I have a vision of being a computer engineer, but I I didn't reach over there, but I am happy now because
But that's okay. Like, no, one has to move on here. We cannot keep that baggage in our neck saying that, no, I wanted to. And for all that you know, you can also be a computer guy as we go on. There is another point that I
so
want.
I was planning to take ISAC also, so I would like to work with the computer also. That's why I am like trying to be happy there. That's
right. That's and there is a point that one of you have just now made of the chat box, which is the point I wanted to also tell people that one of the sad things about the CA community, I think I can take the liberty, having been in the CA profession for long, that our circle of friends consists largely of CS. And that's not something that is really great. I think your closest friends should actually belong to some other profession. You can't go and change it now, but I'm trying to say if 24 hours a day, if you're going to only discuss tax, law, and accounting, and your bad luck, your wife is also a chartered accountant, then you will fight over whether it is Section 88 or whether it is Section 80. For some of you, it might be too late to make those changes. But at least in terms of close friends, I think we must look out and get people from different walks of life. Their perspectives are very, very different.
Any other member, please?
So we are discussing today happiness in digital era, sir. So far we discussed happiness only. So how it will link it to the digital era?
No, in the digital era, it is all the more challenging. Okay. It is all the more challenging. I thought the idea of the digital era is pretty well known. But since you raised that point, let me tell you, for example, it's all the more challenging because we today work with multiple generations. Okay. For example, once upon a time, if I wanted to speak to somebody, I pick the phone and talk. Today, even with someone who is from an older generation compared to mine, if I text them, they take offense. Whereas to a younger generation, I can text. Okay. Today, bulk of the younger generation talks via text. And that's why perhaps some of their communication skills at the time of talking is not exactly great. And today they also text in the text language, which is why their spellings are also bad. What I'm trying to indicate is that in the digital era where things have become extremely fast-paced, and with work from home now happening, the division between your professional work and personal work is now gone. So 24 hours a day you are on it. And if you, God forbid, get hooked to the mobile, then it is never ending. Because you go to the mobile because you want to Google something, suddenly you see a WhatsApp message, so you respond to the WhatsApp message, suddenly you get a notification, there is a mail, and you respond to the mail, you have forgotten why you in the first place. Today, if you go to a restaurant, on a table, there are 4 people having food. Each one of them is looking into the mobile. So that's on the social side. On the workplace side, lots of jobs are getting digital. Lots of jobs are getting automated. So lots of jobs are going to go away. The news is that almost 40% of the jobs that we now have are going to disappear in the next 5 to 7 years. New jobs are sure to come, but we really don't know what those new jobs are. For example, 10 years ago, who knew that Ola and Uber can be a business model? Who knew that Oyo can be a business model? So today also much the same challenges are happening. Many jobs are going to go away in the next 5 years. That is why I said no, upskilling becomes important. If you think that, I have finished CA, now I'm the big boss, I don't have to update myself, I don't have to learn new skills, then you are horribly wrong. So in the digital era, another great challenge is that the availability of knowledge is multiplying very rapidly. When I came out of the CA Institute, world knowledge used to double every 25 years. Today, world knowledge doubles every 2 years. And Robert Skilling has said that when the Internet of Things becomes commonplace, availability of world knowledge will double every 12 hours. So these are all frightening thoughts. These are thoughts that can actually make people very mad. It is in that context that those 3 rules that I spoke about are very relevant in the current, in the digital era that we are going through.
Okay, so yeah, exactly. And client expectation is also is very high. In the
Yeah,
digital
client
era, they can bring
expectation
up
is very high.
anytime.
Absolutely right. Client expectation is very high.
Yes, so they
That is
call
what-
at midnight or morning, or they don't mind. At any time they can call.
Sorry?
No, client can call at any time, maybe in the night or early morning, because in the digital era.
Exactly. No, but it is also important as to how you lay down rules. I have a client, I have a friend, a client of mine who is very clear that post 8 o'clock nobody can call him.
Okay.
Whether he's the whoever, he could be a IAS officer, he could be a minister, he's a whoever, he doesn't pick up the calls. It's
Okay.
switched off. It's switched off. And once privacy laws come in place, you will also soon start seeing that it would become illegal for the office to get in touch with an employee on work-related matter after, let us say, 6:30 in the evening. All those kind of things are going to come.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you, Srijit. Thank you, Srijit.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Okay,
you.
right.
Anyway, thank you, sir, for your wonderful session with a different topic. And I thought that by elaborating what will be the next 10 days topic, and it is full of technical subject, but I feel that your mode of happiness is entirely different. And this is a deviation from what we have done for the last 2.5 months regarding the various technical topic. And today we have got a very good session on the happiness, and you have given various rules and methodology to become happiness, and you have made various advices regarding the happiness, sir. I'm really thanking, sir, for your for sparing the 1.5 hours with the Kannur branch and accepting our invitation. And if Corona is going after 2 or 3 months, I am requesting you to be a part of Kannur branch physically for another session topic, which may be on.
Why should we do physically? And we should do, to be happy, we should do digital.
We will be happy when you are physically with us, sir. More happy when you are physically with us.
Let me tell you something. A colleague of mine with whom I work, okay, the other day he dropped into my place and I told him, hey, we met only 10 days back. No, he said, no, we met 5 months ago. Every day we have been on Zoom. So you think we have met 7 days back? 5 months have gone by. So like that, I think it will become very normal for people to travel less. Anyway, I am open to coming. I would love to come to Kerala.
Now I request our Secretary Shivaprasad sir to formally propose the vote of thanks. Please.
Chairman of Kannur branch, Chartered Accountant Jayaprakash, very illustrious speaker, renowned Chartered Accountant B. Pattabhiram, my dear colleagues in the profession. Today, we had a very apt topic, happiness in the digital era, for discussion. And for this, we had an excellent speaker, the right person, Chartered Accountant V. Pattabhiram from Chennai. We are proud and are blessed with the gracious presence of this multifarious personality. As you all know, he is a Chartered Accountant by profession. At the same time, a writer by passion, a novelist, a columnist in various leading newspapers, a scholar, a teacher, a motivator, and an international speaker. One of his articles named If Mahatma Gandhi Were Alive Today won the national prize and appeared in the book My Experiments with Truth. If we say about his presentation he made today, we can say commendable and marvelous. We, members of Kannur branch, are very grateful for being with us today evening, sharing your valuable time, sharing your knowledge, and for boosting us. Frankly speaking, sir, you made us happy. A thought-provoking presentation. Thank you very much, sir. At the same time, we look forward to your continued support and association with our branch in the future also. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks to our vibrant chairman, Chartered Accountant Jayaprakash, for his initiative and the way he is leading our branch. I express our sincere gratitude to all the members and participants for making the seminar meaningful and successful. Thank you. Please take care, my friends. Be safe.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.